Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing the same thing. This one's on, again, course 1 but module 2 this time. Cybersecurity from Google on Coursera. Once again, I'm just going to be talking about it. What I've learned, what they have. But obviously I can't show it, so I just, go through it through the summary. And hopefully it's good for me. It's good for maybe the future viewers. Who knows? Anyway. Okay. So what they talked about is early cyber attacks and why they matter. So these are like the past cyber attacks that happened before. Past. So the big idea is that cyber attacks today, even today, often reuses like old ideas with new technologies. So you want to understand like all those past attacks because it helps security analysts to sort of like invest incidents faster, predict attack behaviors, build better defenses. Because history is like context plus pattern recognition. And they talked about computer virus. So it's basically malicious code that like interferes with computer operations, damage data or software, and it attaches itself to programs or documents, spread between computers. And then today viruses are like basically broadly referred as malware, and malware is any software designed to cause harm to like devices or network. So that includes like viruses, worms, trojan, ransomware, all that. They also talked about the early malware attacks that basically shaped the security, right? So, for example, we have Brain Virus from 1986. Alvey Brothers, that's the creator. Their original intent was basically to track illegal copies of medical software and prevent privacy, right? But what actually happened is that instead it infected computers using pirated software, infected basically every disk inserted into those computer, spread to new systems through like the shared disk, and then it spread globally within months. So the impact would be like it basically slowed down the productivity, it disrupted business operations, and it kind of just shows how malware can spread unintentionally, right? So even like lesson learned, even non-destructive malwares can cause like massive operational damage. Another one they talked about was the Morris worm. I think they say yeah, Morris. 1988 by Robert Morris. His the original intent was basically measure the size of the internet, and how it worked is it crawled the internet and it installed itself onto like connected computers, right? And then and it counted like infested systems. But there's a critical flaw, which was it didn't track which computers were already infected. So instead it reinstalled itself repeatedly, and it caused systems to run out of memory and crash. So basically over around like 6,000 computers were infected. 10% of which is back then it's like 10% of the internet. Like 6,000 doesn't seem like a lot now because that's probably like 0.01% or something like that. But back then it was definitely a lot. Back in the 1988. And so millions of dollars in damage. Again, major business disruption. So lesson learned: poorly controlled self-propagating code can cripple entire networks. But with these early malware attacks, it did give birth to incident response team, right? So after the Morris worm, they created this thing called the computer emergency response team. As you can kind of see, it's right here. So what they do today is response to security incidents, coordinate responses across organization, share threats, intelligence, and then support detection and recovery efforts. So now it's basically like the foundation of modern incident response. Okay, so so why this kind of matters for like security analysts. Early attacks taught the industry that intent is not the same as impact. Malware spreads faster than expected. Organization needs to basically prepare response plans. And security is about like continuity, not just prevention. Okay, so what you should probably do is, when they mention, is that you want to follow incident response strategies, help maintain like reading lists, and then protect both data and people. Okay, so let's talk about the internet error attacks in lessons. So basically, the big idea was, once high-speed internet became like widespread, malware no longer needed like a physical disk, right? So I don't know if you know, but I think a lot of the viewers now, like around my age, which I'm like 21 or whatever, or even older, right? We know that back then the computer has like a little area where you can insert disk, because this back then was a thing. But because now we have like advanced technologies are advancing, we no longer really need a physical disk, and so is what can malware do. They no longer need a physical disk. Attacks are faster, and they are wider and cheaper too. And then humans basically became the primary attack surface. And then, when we shift to internet-based attacks, early malware spread like through floppy disk. But now with internet, it basically allowed like email-based attack or automated global spread. And like attackers focus less on like the machine alone, but more on like people like us. Sort of a good example would be the love letter attack, created by, I don't know how to say it. The goal of it was basically to steal internet login credentials. How it worked is, victims will receive like an email titled the "I love you," and then with like attachments, love letter for you, right? When opened, malware basically scanned the user's address book and then automatically emailed themselves to all contacts, and then install software to steal user data and password. So it's very effective because the email appears to come from friends, right? So then user would like trust the sender. So no technical exploit needed, just curiosity, basically. If you randomly get an email that gets like that, you would click on it and read it, and then look at the attachment. I mean, I don't know about now, but like back then it was pretty easy. Now it's probably, people are probably like more suspicious about certain emails and stuff. Okay, so it impacts 45 million computers infected, over 10 billion in damages worldwide. And this attack was back in 2000. Social engineering, social engineering, manipulating human behaviors to basically gain information and valuables, to access information, valuables. The love letter attack is considered the first major example of social engineering at a big scale. So, why it still kind of matters is that, like, obviously social media right now is increases public access to personal data. People often prioritize conveniences over privacies, and this increases like organizational risk if not like managed properly. Phishing, using digital communication, usually email, trick users into revealing sensitive data, installing malware. Because phishing is so common today, organizations can run like regular security awareness training, and that security analysts often help lead or support these trainings. Okay. All right, let's talk about this Equifax breach. Isn't it interesting? From 2017. So not that long ago, actually. Actually, almost a decade, but anyways, the target was Equifax. And the type is basically like a massive data breach. What happened was attackers infiltrated Equifax like system. So I think they mentioned that it was like over 100 million plus customers' records were basically stolen, which affected like 40% of the U.S. population, I believe. That's what they mentioned in the Coursera. I don't know if how accurate the number is, but it's probably up there. So data compromised, things like social security numbers, the birth dates, driver license number, home address, credit card numbers, all of that. The reason why it even occurred was it wasn't it wasn't just because of a single mistake. It was actually like multiple failures. So known vulnerabilities existed. Patches were not like applied for months, and then it was like poor vulnerability management basically. So the consequences was that Equifax had to pay over couple hundred million, I believe, to government fines and customer settlements. Now, the breach became a financial wake-up call for companies to finally take things seriously. And so the lesson here is ignoring known vulnerabilities is often more dangerous than unknown ones. So if you know it, you fix it, you know? Actually, yeah, just kind of think about it. Like, if you're like, I don't know, if your pipe exploded and you know it, to fix it. Otherwise, it's bad. All right, so let's see. Oh yeah, that's right. They also mentioned about basically the security domains. So there are a total of 8 of them, and this is the first four. And so it's CISSP. Okay. Yeah. So the big idea is we have the first four. What we have here is basically security domain is as threats evolve, security work becomes like more specialized, right? So to organize this sort of like complexity, CISSP defines 8 security domains. And so the key point to sort of remember is that domains are interconnected. A weakness in one domain can impact the entire organization. And then domain help you basically understand how security work is organized, discover which area aligns with like your interests and stuff, I guess. And CISSP is the Certified Information System Security Professionals. Okay. And it's a globally like recognized cybersecurity certification. Yeah. Okay. So the first 4 is security and risk management. What this domain focus on is security goals and objectives, right? So compliances, business continuity, legal and ethical responses. So an example in practice would be like updating company policies whenever laws change, right? And so like a question would be like, what risk do we face and how do we manage them responsibly? Next is the asset security. So this domain focus on mainly protecting digital and physical assets, as the name suggests. So data lifecycle management, like storage, maintenance, destruction. So a good example would be like you got to make sure let's say like old computers or hard drives are properly destroyed or cleared of confidential like data. In a way, you want to like how do we protect data wherever it exists? So, security architect and engineering. This is basically designing and optimizing secure systems. So choosing and configuring tools, processes, and technologies. So configuring a firewall, as an example, to basically monitor network traffic, filter malicious activity, prevent attacks that affect like productivity and stuff like that. This domain kind of answers like how do we build security into systems from the ground up, kind of like architect and engineering. Yeah. Okay, communication and network security. What this domain focus on is securing like physical network and wireless communication. Again, it's like how the name suggests. You're basically securing communication network. Something asset, you're securing asset. Architect, you're building something. You're building security into system and stuff like that. So once again, this basically manage how data moves across networks. So like an example would be detecting users connecting to unsecure Wi-Fi, creating network policy to basically prevent risky behavior or reduce exposure to attacks. So, and something this basically would answer like, how do we keep data safe while it's moving? All right, and here what we have is the other four. So number 5 is once again this one's on identity and access management, so IAM. What this is on is ensuring that only the right people have the right access to, let's say, like we can say physical things like buildings, right? The right people have the access to this building, or the right people have the access to this app, this network, this data. So the core activity of this is basically identity validation, access role documentation, enforcing access policy. If you're a student, you can't access things that a professor or a teacher can access, right? That's something, it's sort of like that. So it just answers who can access what and why. Security assessment and testing. This is basically testing security controls, collecting and analyzing security data, conducting security audits. So auditing user permissions, ensuring sensitive systems are accessible only to authorized users. So a question would be like, are like the security controls actually working? Something like that. Okay, so security operation. This is basically the day-to-day defense. You want to constantly do investigation. You want to do prevention and response actions. Example again, receiving an alert about some kind of unknown device on like an internal network. You want to contain the threat, investigate it, and then prevent further access, right? So how do we respond to threats in real time? Software development security. Now, this is the part where you do like secure coding practices, integrating systems into software development lifecycle. So this is the part where you're kind of doing the coding and all that, I believe. Example, the dev team, you want them to start doing like password policies, data protection, secure handling of the user data in apps. How do we basically build security into software from the start? Now, actually before that, so how exactly do all 8 domains like fit together? So let's say, for example, if IMA failures, right, then this get turned into like a security operation incident, or something like poor secure coding it basically gets into like breaches despite having a strong network. Weak audit doesn't mean it can still happen where like undetected vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So you need to understand all of the domains, so this way it helps you be able to like spot the weakness in the other domains and try to fix everything, or at least that's how I was basically learned from watching the videos and reading the things. Okay, so determine the types of attacks. Attack types can be categorized and mapped to security domains, and the CISSP domains help analysts basically identify risk factors, understand impact, decide who on the security team should respond. So one attack can fall under like multiple domains, right? So let's take, for example, we have the password attack. So password attack, someone's trying to attempt to like gain access to password protected system or data, whether through it's either through like brute force, rainbow table. So when something like that, you want to go to communication and network security. because you want to think. So when you want to think about it, it's like attacking credential over system slash like networks. Social engineering attack, um, manipulating people to gain access to information and valuables. So, like I said, phishing, whaling, all sorts of these common types. That when this happens, this becomes security and risk management, because this is like where human risk policy and like happens. And again, because it's like, so let's say social engineering attack, like I said, one of them is phishing. Like you have to train if someone were to fall into such attacks, that means they didn't get their training correctly. So it's like a training failures. So there's that. Physical attacks that are affect the physical environment, so not just the digital system. So let's say like malicious USB cable or flash drives, card cloning, skimming devices. This is where the asset security comes in, because remember, like I said, asset security is about like both physical and digital assets and devices. So you want to think protecting physical assets and devices. Adversary artificial intelligence, so using AI or ML manipulation to bypass detection, automate attacks, or exploit identity systems. Now, the main domain for this would be communication and network security and identity and access management. AI enhanced attacks on systems and identities. Supply chain. It's an attacking a trusted third party to compromise like basically multiple organizations. So it's dangerous because one breach can cause many victims, and it's very hard to detect, extremely costly. Now, domains involved here can be multiple. Security and risk management, security and architect, security operation, because you want to respond immediately. Architect is because it's telling you that there's something wrong, like, hello, why is this happening? And then, security, risk, and management. So indirect compromise via like vendors and dependencies. Cryptographic attacks that weaken or break secure communication. So they mentioned some of the common types: birthday attacks, collision attacks, downgrade attacks, which I have no idea what they are, but they mention it. So, and then for that, communication and network security, and then like it's attacking encryption, not password. So kind of like the same thing as a password attack, except like I mentioned, the bottom one, the cryptographic attack is on encryption. And all right, so finally, I think this is the final one. Yeah, this is the final one. Okay, so finally what we have here are basically the major threat actors type. So a threat actor is any person or group that poses a security risk. To defend effectively, security analysts must understand who the attacker is, what motivates them, how long they're willing to persist, and what damage they want to cause. So different attackers means different defenses. And they list out some of the major threat actors type. Advanced persistent threats, APT. They are basically highly skilled, well resourced, often linked to nations, state, or organized groups. So what they do is they target governments, large corporation, or critical infrastructure. And then they like basically remain undetected for long periods of time. Their motivation is basically damage critical infrastructure like power grid or resources, steal intellectual property, so like trade secrets or things like that. And then so they're very stealthy, very patient, very strategical. Insider threats, so can be current or formal employees, contractors or trusted partners, any of that. The reason why they're dangerous and can be a major is that because they already have authority, like authorized access, right, and can bypass a lot of the defense are already. Their motivation for that would always be like either sabotage and corruption, or just wanting to leak things and anything. And for insider threats, it can a lot of the times be either intentional or accidental. But whatever the case is, even if it's accidental, it still counts as an insider threat, and the impact is can be very severe. Hacktivists, they are politically or like motivated attackers. Their goal is to do like demonstration, propaganda, social or like political changes, and just public attention other times. Their tactics can be like data leaks, disruption of service. They just so for someone like hacktivists, they're mostly on like sending out a message. They want to tell you something rather than things like money or you know. All right, hacker categories by authorization, right? So we have the authorized hackers. These are the ethical hackers. What they do is this is a legal work. They basically follow ethical guidelines, and they do like penetration testing, risk management. The whole point of theirs is to basically trying their best to hack the organization and tell the organization, hey, this is the problem and we need to fix it in order to protect it. Semi-authorized hackers, these are like the researchers. They look for vulnerabilities. They don't exploit what they find. They just often report the issues through it. So for semi, they don't hack. They just find it and then like report it. Now, and then there's the unethical hackers, which is the unauthorized hackers. Break the law, steal and sell data, cause harm for profit. Their motivation, obviously, financial gain. Yeah. New unskilled threat actors. They have like limited technical skills. They rely on existing malware, public script, automated tools. For them, these kind of depends, right? Some can do it just for learning, while others can do it for revenge. And other times they just want to do exploitation. So this one's kind of just depends. Contract hackers are basically, they are hired to complete a task. They are doing it just for payment. So they can work either legally, so like security testing, or illegally, like criminal service. So ethics depends on who hires them and for what purpose. So contract hackers. Vigilante hackers, so what they are is they are basically self-appointed defenders. They believe they're protecting the world from bad actors. So sometimes they can operate outside the law and then still cause like damage, even though they have good intention, just like the name. So now, finally, I just want to say why this sort of matters for something like security analysts, right? Understanding attackers help you predict attack methods, and then be able to prioritize defenses, choose the appropriate response, and then communicate the risk clearly to like everyone else. Different attackers obviously require different like controls. Like I mentioned, the APT, right? Monitoring, threat intelligence. Insiders, you want to have great access control and audits. Hacktivists, reputation, availability, protections, all of that. So you just gotta understand. And yeah, that's pretty much it. After that, the rest of it was just like the glossary that they showed you with like all the vocabulary words and all that. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Bye. If you want to see another side of me that isn't always about computer science, then check out my other YouTube channel and come and watch my Twitch, where I play a bunch of competitive games either by myself or with my friends. And not only that, but I do have my Discord available just in case if you wanted to add me, either to just talk about anything, whatever you want, or have some kind of question from my video. Thanks.